Hello everyone. In this video, let us see how to use Microsoft Entra ID and how we are able to create the users and groups. If I click on Microsoft Entra ID, you'll be able to see the default directory and the numbers of users which has been created as part of this particular tenant. So this is the primary domain, which is also the tenant. And whenever you create an Azure Cloud account, with your email ID will be appended. So this is my email ID and it will be appended with .onmicrosoft.com. So total, it will be your tenant. So this will be your tenant. And total users, what I have in my tenant is 2 users. If I click on the users, you will be able to see there are 2 users. And if I click on Microsoft Entra ID again, you'll be able to see there are multiple options over here in the directory. If I wanted to create new user, I can simply come here, add user, create new user, or I can invite external user. If I wanted to create group, I'll be able to create the group enterprise application, or I can also do app registration. If I wanted to create tenants, I can click on tenant. This is my default tenant. And if I wanted to create another tenant, I have to click on create. You will be provided with 2 options. Now this is blocked now and this is enabled. This is only available if you have paid license, which means if you have P1 or P2 license, you will be able to use Microsoft Entra ID tenant, additional tenant. I am not using P1 or P2. That is the reason I am not able to create the tenant. Basically, why do you require multiple tenants? If you have multiple environments like production environment, test environment, and development environment, if you want the production environment users not to access the development environment or test environment, you are restricting them within their environment. Basically, by creating multiple tenants, you create one tenant for production, one tenant for development, one tenant for test. And the users belong to those specific tenants will be able to access those resources. Since I don't have P1 or P2 license, I will not be able to create the new tenant. So I'll go back to the default directory where we will be able to create the users. If I wanted to create user, I can create user over here. Create new user. I wanted to say user 02 and I'll keep this. This is the login or UPN, user principal name. This is the user ID which I have to use to log in. If I have created custom domain, by clicking this drop down, the custom domain name will be listed. You can create the user account for your custom domain name as well. And I'll give some random user 02. Password I'll say not auto generated. So I'll use the password. I don't remember the password which I have used. I'll copy to the clipboard, review and create. I'll simply create. Now we can see the user ID has been created and this is the UPN suffix for this user ID, user 02. And if I click on the user ID itself, I'll be able to see the details of the user ID and the account status is enabled. And if I wanted to convert to B2B, I can convert to external user. I don't want to do that. And properties, if I wanted to edit, I can edit the properties and update all the information which I have missed in the first section. If I wanted to update job information, contact, everything, I can update here. And if I click on user ID again, and if I click on assigned roles, let us see what are the roles which has been assigned. There is no roles which has been assigned. And if I go back to the overview, I will use the user ID which we have created to log in, and I'll go to Mozilla, and I will use this user ID. And the user ID which I used to have, the password which I have used while creating the user ID, I have to use that. Hope I remember the password. It's correct. My current password, okay. Basically, the password needs to be unique. If you are repeating some passwords and the password is common, the portal is not allowing you to enter the password or use the password. So I'll try to use another password. Okay. I'm able to log in with the password, and this is the user ID which we have created. So once you have reset your password, you need to configure the MFA, and you need to install Microsoft Authenticator or any other authenticator tool. If you have already installed Microsoft Authenticator app, you can click on next, and you will be able to set up your account. Click on next, and you need to scan the QR code. Let me scan the QR code. And I have scanned the QR code. I need to enter the number. Now I am able to log into the portal. Even though I have access to the Microsoft portal, I'll not be able to do anything because this user ID is a dummy user ID. It doesn't have any privileges. It doesn't have any roles assigned. If I wanted to create any resource group or resources, I'll not be able to do it because this particular user doesn't have any privileges or roles assigned. To assign the roles, let us say if I wanted to create a resource, I'll try to create virtual machine. I'll not be able to create it. So what I will do is I'll go back to the user account itself, the account which has privileges, which is my account, the account which has privileges. This is the account which has global admin role. And what I will do is I'll simply create a resource group, and I'll select resource group. Let it be demo user creation. Review and create. I have created, and I will select this demo user creation resource group and select access control, select add role assignment, and there are multiple built-in role assignment what we can assign, and I can select virtual machine. I'll click on virtual machine contributor and click on next. User group or service principal. We need to add the user. I have to select member. So select the member as user02 and select next. So now this particular user has been added to virtual machine contributor. Since we have given the virtual machine contributor role to user02, let us see if we are able to create the virtual machine. If I click on virtual machine and say create virtual machine, then I will say, see, this demo user creation user group is also listed because we have given the user account at this level of hierarchy. And we will say VM01 and no infrastructure is needed. Basic level of security is okay for me because this is a demo purpose, and okay, this seems to be cheapest. And I wanted to use the password. Let me use the password. Azure user will be my user ID, and the password is okay. It has accepted both the passwords, and I will allow SSH22. Next, we'll go to disk, and this is okay. And yeah, SSH is okay. I'll review and create. So if you notice, we have given the virtual machine contributor role, but it is saying we don't have permission to the network level. So we'll also need to use network level of access for this user ID. So we need to provide storage and also the network level of access. So I'll go back to the user account again and access control. I will add role assignment. This time I will add network. Network contributor. Okay. I'll select the members. I'll select the user and add it. So if I click on roles, role assignment, and we'll be able to see for this particular resource group, we have user02 who has given network contributor and virtual machine contributor roles. And if I go to this section again and previous, I will go to the previous and go to the basic. Okay, I'll review and create. So the validation has passed here. So that means we need to have virtual machine contributor role and also the network contributor role for any given user to create a virtual machine, because the virtual machine itself involves the virtual network to be created, and there is also an IP address to be assigned. So now we have virtual network which is going to be created, and there is also a default subnet which is also created, and a public IP will be assigned. I will create. So I am able to create the virtual machine using the user02 user account. So let us see the virtual machines. VM01. Okay. So the virtual machine has been created. Let us use the Cloud Shell and let us AZ VM list AZ VM list in table format. Okay, misspelled. AZ table. Yeah. We are able to see that virtual machine has been created in East US location, and also with the resource group what we have created and given the permission for this particular user. If I wanted to create a group, I will go back to the user account which has global admin rights. I'll go to home and I'll select Entra ID, and since I wanted to add group, I'll create group here. It is asking security or Microsoft 365. I have to select security group, group name VM contributor group. This group is for VM contributor, and I wanted to select the members. I'll select from user and I'll select the users. So in the Entra ID tenant, we will be able to see how many users have been created and how many groups has been created. So there are 3 users and 1 groups currently. If I wanted to manage the groups, I can come here and manage the groups. So there are 1 group which has been created, VM contributor, for creating the virtual machine. I will go back to the home again and I'll go to the resource group. I'll go to the resource group itself and I'll click on access control IAM. I'll click on add role assignment. So what I will do is I will select virtual machine contributor, and now I will add members. So I have added group as the member. I'll click on next, review and design. I'll come back to the resource group again with access control IAM and add role assignment. Click on add role assignment. Now I will add network contributor role. I will go to the network contributor role and I will add. Now I will select the members as this particular group. I will review and assign. So now this particular group has 2 roles which has been assigned. I will give another role as well, which is storage contributor. So storage account contributor. I'll click on next, select members and select. review and assign. So now we are able to see role assignments, VM contributor as network contributor role, storage account contributor, and virtual machine contributor role. The users 02 will be able to create storage account as well. If I go back to storage account, you notice you will be able to create storage account. So this was an overview about users and groups in Entra ID.